Okay, so we have an interesting domestic clash taking place this weekend in the Cruiserweight division. This is Mikael Lawal versus Isaac Chamberlain. I'm sure most of you guys know this was supposed to be chief support, I guess, for Joshua Buatsi versus Dan Aziz. Unfortunately, that main event has been scrapped because Dan Aziz has reportedly suffered an injury. Um, However, it looks like the card, or the majority of the card, has been salvaged. It's been relocated to York Hall, and I guess some kind of consolation, we have this fight here, which I actually think is quite intriguing. I'm looking forward to seeing how this fight unfolds because I personally feel that it has, some of the ingredients that make for quite an entertaining domestic spectacle. You got two guys very evenly matched. They're in a similar stage of their careers, and you got the British title on the line. And anyone who knows British boxing is that title seems to bring out the best in people in domestic clashes. So I've got a good feeling about this one. Hey, I could be wrong, but it's just a feeling. If we look at both guys, we've got Mikael Lawal. He's 17-0 compared to Isaac Chamberlain, who's 15-2. So both 17 fights in. Mikael Lawal is 28, 6'2", whereas Isaac Chamberlain is 29, 6'2". So this is what I mean, very evenly matched. Although I think it's fair to say that Isaac Chamberlain has operated at a higher level. He's been against Chris Smith, of course, Lawrence Okolie, Luke Watkins, a lot of cruiserweights on the domestic scene in the UK. Whereas Mikael Lawal, he's been pro for, I think, 2 years less, and he hasn't really done as much. I think they got a couple of, or quite a few mutual opponents, but nothing, no one of particularly high level on Mikael Lawal's record. Nevertheless, there's always a time to step up, and I think that's what this is for Mikael Lawal. It's a step up. Whereas Isaac Chamberlain, he's kind of, as I say, he's been in with better guys, so I guess that puts him in better stead. It maybe gives him a little bit of a boost in many people's opinions. However, I think this is an interesting clash of styles because they're, even though these guys are evenly matched, they bring different things to the table. Now, I just want to give a disclaimer. Take my opinion, as you should anyway, with a pinch of salt. But specifically with this, just because I'm familiar with both of these fighters, but I can't say I followed them that closely in their careers. I feel like I know them enough to give a decent outline and prediction of how I think this fight's going to go. But it's not going to be my most comprehensive and academic breakdown. But nevertheless, I wanted to cover this fight anyway. Mikael Lawal is a fighter. I look at him and I associate him with kind of textbook technique. He doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's rudimentary, but I just want to say he's basic. And that's not a bad thing. Basics can take you a long way. There have been plenty of great fighters in the past who have relied on the basics, refined them, done them well, and enjoyed a lot of success. And that's kind of what I see with Mikael Lawal, that kind of mould where there's no special effects, just a kind of straight up and down boxer, does things competently, and can punch pretty damn hard. His record, 11 knockouts at 17 fights. It's not the most in-your-face knockout percentage, but I think he definitely hits hard, Mikael Lawal. And I believe it was back in 2019, I want to say. I actually saw him in person, and he's a physical specimen, I'll say that. He's got the kind of physique that many men would kill for. But obviously, bodies don't win fights. But I think it is indicative of Mikael Lawal being quite a naturally powerful and athletic man. And on the flip side, we have Isaac Chamberlain, who is a bit of a slickster maybe. He's someone who's quite smooth, quite rhythmic, quite fluid in the ring, and maybe lacks the offensive firepower, but kind of makes up for it, maybe having a few more wrinkles to his game, a bit more of a cultured and experienced boxing style. And I feel like this can come together and, potentially see the best of both guys. Mikael Lawal, if we want to talk shortcomings, I feel like defensively, there are a few things that need to be tightened up. I don't think he's the most defensively sound fighter. I think he's actually quite vulnerable in that regard, despite the fact that he can punch quite hard, and that's always a potentially dangerous proposition for an opponent, because if you have a guy in front of you who you know you can tag, but if he catches you, it could be lights out. It's always tempting. Sometimes you see guys, they get a bit greedy. They chase after a fighter who they view as vulnerable and easy to get to, and all of a sudden they get cleaned out. Isaac Chamberlain, on the other hand, I feel like for the most part, he is a bit more competent defensively. However, he does still have some habits that I'm not too keen on, like he, as I say, has a very fluid style, and sometimes he looks to push the issue. He's a fighter that can go backwards, he can go forwards, he can go laterally. But sometimes when he's advancing, I just see him with that low left hand, and I'm not like one of these old heads who's like, oh, you should never have your hands low. There's a time and a place for many different postures and positions in boxing. But Isaac Chamberlain, I've seen him a few times over the course of his career just get timed over the top of that low left hand as he's coming forward, potentially doubling the impact. But for the most part, I'd say that Isaac Chamberlain is a bit more, or is a better defensive fighter. As I said, I don't think he really has the firepower of Mikael Lawal, but he's probably a bit more creative and cultured in his approach to boxing. So I've got to say, I'm finding this kind of tricky to pick a winner, because I can realistically see how Mikael Lawal could capitalise on some of the defensive holes of Isaac Chamberlain, and maybe drop him, maybe stop him. However, given the experience advantage of Isaac Chamberlain, I think he's been through rough moments. Like, let's just look back at that Chris Billam-Smith fight. That was a torrid fight. And that was a very close fight where both guys had a lot of success. And Isaac Chamberlain really held his own, because Chris Billam-Smith's a bit of a workhorse, He's the kind of guy who, he's got that engine. And so you need to really, you need to hang tough. And that's exactly what Isaac Chamberlain did. So I think there is a lot of resilience with Isaac Chamberlain. And not to say that Mikael Lawal isn't resilient, because I believe he probably is. However, I'm just worried. I'm thinking about how consistently Isaac Chamberlain might be able to land on Mikael Lawal, because with Lawal, as I say, the defensive responsibility isn't there. There are some defensive layers that are just not present. I'm just wondering if maybe once Isaac Chamberlain gets into his groove, he might just be able to start picking apart the more textbook, the more basic fighter in Mikael Lawal, landing more consistently and accumulating some damage. So I was kind of initially thinking, okay, Lawal's a big punch, so maybe him by stoppage, but then maybe if Isaac Chamberlain can see out the fight, he'll probably win on points. But I'm almost thinking that maybe this is Chamberlain's fight to win by late stoppage. Maybe if he could potentially have a rough couple of rounds, well, maybe not rough, maybe just where Mikael Lawal times him, lands a couple of eye-catching punches, but when he sees that Lawal only has so many ways that he can offend and defend, maybe Chamberlain switches it up, maybe uses some of that versatility, gets into a groove, kind of gets into the flow state, and just starts to land on Mikael Lawal more and more consistently, breaking him down over the course of the fight. And so I'm going to stick my neck out, and I'm going to say Isaac Chamberlain wins this fight. Round 10 or after. I think it's going to be a late stoppage. I think both guys are going to have their moments, but I think ultimately it will be Isaac Chamberlain, as I say, just accumulating too much punishment on Lawal, and maybe forcing the referee to jump in or the corner to throw in the towel, and becoming British Cruiserweight champion. Yeah, I'm going with that. Isaac Chamberlain late stoppage. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I know this wasn't the most in-depth study or breakdown and prediction that I've presented, but I feel like it's enough, and hopefully it's a good fight. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. But for now, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.